If you want to become a kick-ass software developer, there's only one thing that works, or two things. The first thing is to code. And I mean code, 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 code. Code until you've got code coming out of your freaking ears. The second thing is to read other people's code and to modify that code. Preferably as widely across the spectrum as possible. Right, find code from people having different architectural belief systems and, look at the code, refactor it, supply, push-pull requests towards those people's code, etc., etc. And that's really the only thing that works. When you have coded for some, couple of years or something, sure, you can start reading about, algorithms and data structures and stuff like that. But I mean, initially it's completely useless. Freaking code. That's the only thing that works. And by the way, forget about university. You can cherry pick whatever courses you want from any university line, and download a curriculum. And instead of having to spend 6 or 12 months going through the material, if you are highly structured and you're willing to be extremely dedicated, you can go through one course in a week. I went through algorithms and data structures in approximately a week. And I still remember big O notation and shit like that, even though it's like 25 years ago. I can implement, binary trees and, probably quicksort. If I spend 5 minutes reading the documentation about it, I know the difference in big O notation between, bubble sort and quicksort and selection sort and insertion sort and B trees and red and black trees and linked lists and binary trees, etc., etc. But code, 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 code. I remember related to the concept of 1 million X devs. I remember I had a manager some 5 years ago, and I was hired as the architect for a system that had 250,000 lines of code. Now, I spent a weekend refactoring initially when I started there. After a couple of weeks, having gotten to know the code and being introduced to my people, etc. I spent a weekend refactoring their entire code base, 236,000 lines of code, upgrading it from Azure Functions version 2 to Azure Functions version 3, updating it from .NET Core 2.2 to .NET Core 3, significantly improved the code quality, simplified the code, and made it much more readable, and removed irrelevant constructs. When I came to a job that Monday, my manager was angry at me because apparently I had crashed the QA environment because I didn't realize that .NET Core 3 didn't allow for non-async HTTP endpoints. So it would throw a not implemented exception, because in version 2 we were using old style HTTP endpoint without the async keyword. This was C#, of course. And from .NET version 2 to .NET version 3, Microsoft just eliminated that entire code and threw a not implemented exception, which was the right thing to do by them, and also the right thing to do for me. However, because of that, the QA team, 2 people, were incapable of actually running the system and quality assure it and QA test it for 3 hours before I could fix the bug. I was brought into the office of my manager, where my manager first said, A, your job is not to code. B, I don't believe in 10x developers. Week later, I handed in my resignation. This is Magic Cloud. Its purpose is to optimize software development. So over my time as an enterprise software developer, I realized that 80% of the problem we are facing related to administration apps, which just so happens to be like 85% of software developers worldwide's daily job, happens to be centered around database, simple I/O, reading files, invoking HTTP connections, etc., etc. So let me show you how you can go ahead and use my system to become 234 million times more productive, both on quality and on time to market. First, I'm going to create a database, and let me call this guy CRM. Then let me edit this guy. And now I could create, actually let me do that, accounts. So now I have a basic CRM database. Let me create another table, call it products. Let me add an association towards accounts, I guess is the correct place to have the association. And price. So now we have a basic CRM database with accounts, contacts, and products. Products and contacts have a many-to-one relationship towards accounts, or accounts has a one-to-many relationship towards contacts and products, allowing us to describe a company being a client with multiple contacts. We can add another one, activities, right? And then we can associate activities with, contacts. And then we can even activity types. Then let's add a name to this guy. Let's add a description to this guy. And then let's add I think that's about roughly a correct style for a CRM with 5 tables. Now let's go into create endpoint generator. Let's choose this guy. CRM, 5 tables. Click generate endpoints, the system produced after a couple of seconds. 1,146 lines of code. This is 80% of your problem. I just implemented 1,136 lines of code, and I solved 80% of your problem. So let's now solve the remaining 20. HyperID, modules, CRM. Let's say we want to have, whenever a new account is created, we want the CEO to have an email. Okay? Email, send email. Name, Thomas Hansen, I'm the CEO, so I'm the one that's going to be given the email from. We don't need to change the from, and we don't need to change the reply to, because we've already configured that in our configuration object. New account created. New account was created. Log into the CRM to see the details. Now I get an email every time somebody creates an account. Save it, done. Let's say now I want to wrap it into an AI chatbot. Okay, manage machine learning, add CRM, flavor, AI agent, save. Go back to my HyperID bugger here, modules, CRM, hover over the folder, click the flash icon, choose my type, click generate. Some few seconds later, I have RAG training snippets for every single CRUD operation that exists in my system, and I can now use RAG I can now use natural language to modify my CRM database. Now I can go back to machine learning. I can vectorize the type, creating embeddings for it. After a couple of more seconds now, I can actually use the AI expert system, which by the way is a plugin. You can find it under manage plugins if you haven't already installed it, but I've already installed it. So I can just basically go there directly after I'm done with vectorizing my RAG data. I want want to create 5 new accounts. Use example demo data for non-existing companies and insert into my CRM database. Sorry, wrong type. I want to create 5 new accounts. Insert some non-existing company names into my CRM database. There you go. Creating something like this would take the average software developer 6 to 12 months. I created it in 5 minutes live on YouTube without editing the video. Do you believe in 10x developers now? Because I just showed you how I could create in 5 minutes something that would require the average software developer 6 to 12 months to implement. Now, if you assume that you can create 1 million lines of code using automated software development processes based upon meta programming and declarative programming, such as I just did in this video, and you know the science about the productivity of the average software developer, which happens to be between 325 lines of code and 750 lines of code per month, that becomes an average of 550 lines of code per month. Now, comparing those two figures with each other, 1 million lines of code per second and 550 lines of code per month, implies that, using Magic Cloud, you can, in theory, become 234 million times as productive as the average software developer. And yes, at this point, I realize some of you are capable of producing more than 550 lines of code, but this is industry fucking science. The average software developer produces between 325 and 750 lines of code per month. And I need to emphasize, in the company where I handed in my resignation because my manager didn't believe in 10x developers, I measured code commits over a period of 3 months. I was the architect for the entirety of the team, 12 developers, 1 PM, 2-3 QA guys, 4-5 developers, plus me, etc., etc. We were 12 people in total. Over the course of 3 months, I counted the lines of code committed to our Git repository. We had 24 lines of code changes in 3 months.